Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We are discussing Trump's first 100 days today, and especially for this series about the economy and how that has really impacted him. So, at the 100-day mark, I would surmise it as Trump is in retreat. And I've written a more full article on this at Substack. I put the link if you want to read it in the description. But basically, what has happened is Trump really cares about two things, and it's how he monitors himself in the first regime and also this time. One is his approval ratings, and second is the stock market. I know he says he doesn't follow the stock market, but he follows the stock market. And now he has to follow as well what we've been talking about, the increase in yield required for the U.S. to borrow money, also known as the concern we've discussed as U.S. exceptionalism. As we finish off his 100 days, his approval has plummeted. Two recent polls find that he's actually hit the high 30s in overall approval. But as worrying as well for him, the two major issues he ran on, one, immigration he's now negative on, and as well the economy. Depending on the poll, he's somewhere in the high 30s to low 40s on the economy. Yeah. And he's not fooling anyone with these tariffs. 7 in 10 Americans believe that the price of what they purchase is about to go up. And they're right. We're going to discuss that next. But I want to just discuss what this means for Trump and why his presidency is now in retreat. There are 7 examples that I cite in the article. The first 2 we're going to talk about here relate to our discussions on the economy and happened last Tuesday after the market close. One was him saying to reporters he was not going to fire Powell. He said, "Who, me? I never said that." It's like, oh, I'm old enough to remember like last week when you tweeted that you were going to fire him and when you told reporters you could fire him, even though you can't because it's illegal. But he backed off because what happened on Monday of this last week? We had a wholesale sell-off, not only in the equity markets, but also, as we've discussed, this concern with U.S. exceptionalism. We saw the U.S. dollar plunge, and we also saw Treasury yields rise or the price go down. So that was very troubling Monday. Finally, someone pushed him on Tuesday to say that, and then also to say that he was going to soften his stance on China. And then at the end of this week, he did an extensive interview with Time magazine. And one of the things he said / lied about was that he has had conversations with the Chinese president. And China came out with a statement saying, "That's funny. No, we haven't." There's been no discussions. Trump also said that he was close on 200 deals. 200 deals? I mean, even Peter Navarro said 90 deals in 90 days. 200? Are we like negotiating with some of the countries that only had penguins and seals? Like, who are these 200 countries? And he said this twice, another lie. And how many deals has Trump struck so far? If you've been counting, I've been counting. 0. So again, it's an attempted retreat. And we're going to talk about this after we go through the 7, where things are, because things are moving forward. Yeah, the world did not stop because Trump decided he wanted to be a grand negotiator. Things are shifting. The other things he's backed out on, the deportation of Abrego Garcia, which he thought he had a winning issue on and was pushing that this guy was a criminal, which was not true. And all his regime was on Fox News pushing that storyline and how he belonged out of the country. Then it came out that turns out he didn't have a criminal record. And it came out in polling that that is one of his least popular issues. He's down underwater by 21 points. So what did he do on Friday? He told reporters, "It's not me. I'm not involved in that decision. It's my DOJ," which is a sign of what he does. When there's a problem, he distances himself from it. The second thing that he was least popular on, also negative 21 points approval on, was Russia and Ukraine. And Trump continues, it's like the gaslighting at an extraordinary level, to say that Ukraine is at fault because Russia invaded them. And he also, I've linked to in my article, an article in the New York Times, about how if you didn't know better, you would think that Trump was a Russian asset, because everything he has done, both with his regime, getting rid of departments in the State Department that focused on democracy, to getting rid of Voice of America and other broadcast networks that were international ways of broadcasting the truth, all these things helped Putin. But then it's another issue. He had to retreat. And so on Saturday, he had a meeting with an impromptu meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. And now he said, oh, so maybe Russia doesn't want peace after all. So he backed off on that. We also talked about Elon Musk and the vast failure of Doge. We've discussed that extensively. I've written about it extensively in my Substack. I have a piece up there called Elon Musk Has Left DC in Disgrace. Between the economics of what happened to Tesla, which we've discussed here, the stock price plummeting, Americans are no longer buying. His sales were down 20% internationally and nationally overall. Net income down 71%. So Elon Musk is gone and Trump has backed away. Now we're hearing less and less about Doge. We also, the other two things that we have seen him retreat on, I'm checking my notes, student visas on Friday, after more than 1,000 students have lost their visa. Trump regime totally gave them back, retreated. They had been sued by 65 different lawsuits and were on their way to lose all of them. So far, there's been 122 lawsuits that have successfully either stopped or totally blocked Trump's actions. And last but not least, an attempted retreat on Harvard, which I also cover in my Substack. You can read more about it, but they set up a fall guy, planted a story on a Friday night that he wasn't authorized to send this letter. Because guess what? Harvard fought back. And now 220 other universities have signed a letter in support of Harvard and against what Trump is doing. I mean, this made me great. I'm a big Iowa women's basketball fan, so I'm a Big Ten fan, which is actually the Big 18 now. But the Big Ten are structuring like a NATO type compact to protect each other and pool resources against Trump. So the resistance is building in his first days. And just to put some numbers on it, his first 100 days in the post ABC poll that was out today is the worst in the last 80 years, 39% approved, even worse than his first regime where he was at 40%. Every other president has been above 50% because we're Americans and we like to give you a chance. He's floundered that. So now let's talk about the economy. And as we've covered here, the U.S. exceptionalism, the loss of U.S. exceptionalism. And a lot of analysts now think that this is, during the Trump era, something that's here to stay, that we are in an era of the loss of U.S. exceptionalism. And we've talked about how the U.S. dollar, which was viewed as a safe bet, like what international investors would do is they would borrow in U.S. dollars, they would invest in our stock market, and it was like win-win for them. Now they're seeing lose-lose because the value of the dollar is down, and obviously our stock market is getting cratered. We also talked about the fact that yields have gone up because the investors want a bigger risk premium to invest in the United States because of Donald J. Trump. Not only the economics of what he's done, but also there's a concern with our democracy and the fact that he's disobeying the Supreme Court, the other courts, even though on Monday he says he's not going to fire Powell, or on Tuesday, who knows what comes next. And we are, living by this man's posts on Truth Social, because our Republicans have totally abdicated their role as being in charge of tariffs. Probably the only thing that will stop him, other than the economy unwinding as it is, are lawsuits. There are a bunch of Democrats that are attorneys general that have filed a lawsuit. There are small companies that have filed lawsuits saying that he does not have the legal authority to do what he's doing. We are not in a national emergency that would allow him to do this. So stay tuned. But what happens even if he is able to stop And he's kind of put himself in a bad spot here because he sets himself out as this grand negotiator. I'm going to strike 90 deals. I'm going to strike 200 deals. I'm about to strike a deal with China, although China has something to say about it. As far as they know, they're not in a conversation with you. So how does he cover himself? Because he looks really stupid. And one thing we know about Trump, he's stubborn and he doesn't like to look stupid. The problem is the toothpaste is out of the tooth out of the tooth can. I mean, it's already started. 60% of all shipments coming out of China have stopped. There's already US companies that depend on China for either part of their production line, or they're ordering, for example, there's a story in the Post, fireworks for the 250-year celebration in 2026. And they can't afford it. And so they're telling China producers that they've bought from for decades to stop, we can't take your order. So there are repercussions that are just starting. Shine, where if you have like fast fashion, if you have kids at home, or if you're into fast fashion, Shine has raised their price by 377%. It's about to feel like it did during the pandemic. When you go to stores and there were fewer and fewer products on the shelves, we're going to start to realize how much we really buy from China. And what's going to happen when there's fewer products? Hello, Econ 101, supply, demand, the price goes up. Even before we take into consideration the tariffs and that impact, that Walmart and other companies and Target who met with Trump has said, we are going to have to pass this on to consumers. All of it's going to be passed on to consumers. So expect prices to go up. And expect the economy to be shaky, because we don't know how this is all going to play out, but it is about to play out. And we are going to see times where the companies that are reporting now are going to show decent results. And so you might get a short-term rally. But the unusual thing that has almost never happened before, our companies are giving like two sets of guidance. United Airlines gave, here's one set of guidance and another set of guidance, because no one knows what this man is going to do. But the problem is, even if he stops now, everything is in motion and it's too late. So as far as yourself as an investor, I would not believe anyone who tells you we are near a bottom. We are in a choppy period. We are in the middle of this storm. There might be good news. There might be deals that he reaches with one country, but don't fall for that. That's just like one small thing. And we have this global dislocation, and we have a loss in faith in the US. And nobody knows how that's going to impact us. So stay tuned. I will keep you apprised as we go. And again, you can check my Substack for a full explanation on these examples of how he has had to retreat, which is good news. If we could only get Congress to do their job, we might actually be in decent shape. Have a good night.